On today's Bayside, we're joined by Pasco Aware. The mission of Pasco Aware is to provide suicide prevention and intervention throughout Pasco County schools and the community, to foster awareness of responsible media reporting on the subject of suicide. Our friends from Pasco Aware is next on Bayside. Good morning and welcome to Bayside. I'm your host, Shelley Sanders. We are talking all about Pasco Aware. Hopefully you never have to deal with this topic, but unfortunately it is a relevant one, and thank goodness Pasco Aware is there. Let's go now and talk to my wonderful guests here. Christina Roberta, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having
And
us.
Jody Nicosia.
Hello,
Welcome.
thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Both of you are co-chairs for Pasco Aware. What a horrible topic to have to talk about, but it's something that is necessary, and hopefully we can get to a place at some point, maybe in our lives, maybe not, to where we don't need something like this. So tell me about Pasco Aware. I know I alluded to it in the open, but tell me about it.
Well, Pasco Aware is a group of folks that come together under the System of Care grant, the Children's Mental Health System of Care grant that's in our community. We're really excited to offer an opportunity for our community providers and stakeholders to learn more about suicide in our community and work together to provide any prevention opportunities that we have. Luckily, Baycare is a great partner, and they have a lot of different resources that come to the table.
Sure. That's a giant undertaking. I mean, it sounds, when you package it all into a statement, it's one thing, but then when you really start to digest that statement and realize just what it is that you're doing, that is huge. And yes, thank goodness Baycare, because being there, I mean, that's going to help with this topic. So from your standpoint, or from your perspective rather, Baycare, tell me about that. How is it that you come to be involved in this?
Well, so as Baycare as a whole, or Baycare Behavioral Health, we provide mental health services, and we do have supports in the schools. We have support in the community. We have all different types of therapy and case management resources. But also, what's really important is that when someone is in crisis, is that we always want to make sure that they know to call the crisis hotline, which should be going to be displayed on the screen.
Sure.
It's 1-800 273-TALK, and that's the most important. So when someone is in crisis, or if you know someone that's in crisis, that's what's most important. But Baycare is a great partner within Aware, but we have so many other partners with law enforcement, the school district, CFBHN, police departments, business owners, because suicide can really touch anybody.
Sure, absolutely, and it absolutely does. And you would have to, I would think, especially with this topic, it would be impossible to even approach this without having some kind of partners within the community. I mean, ultimately, that's what everybody needs. And these partners, Baycare Behavioral Network, all of them, all the ones that you talked about. So how do you even begin to do that? I mean, let's tackle that question. Where do you start? And was that the question?
Well, first, really, it's talking about it. Talking about suicide and getting it out there is really most important. There's so many signs for suicide: social isolation, lack of connectivity in your community. There's so many of these signs that we come across every day, and we have an opportunity to make a difference just by having those conversations with the ones we love, checking in on them and making sure that they know that they're not alone, helping them to realize that everyone has an internal struggle and challenges, that, but communicating that with your peers and supports, a trusted adult, is how you really can prevent suicide from occurring.
Sure. Is Pasco Aware targeting just kids, teenagers, or is this for anyone?
So we do a lot of focus with youth prevention because a lot of our community partners deal with children's issues, but we still know that suicide can touch any age group, and
Sure.
so that's really important to remember too. Pasco County, unfortunately, is one of the higher counties that has high rates of suicide with youth in older populations too. In 2016, we saw really high, record high rates of youth attempting suicide through poison, and it has gone down in a few years, but it's still, Pasco County is still ranked very high up there in Florida.
So is that part of partnering with all these various organizations and companies is to try and figure out what is that, why, the why factor, and hoping to get involved with the youth at an early enough stage to where they've got these coping skills should they encounter this later in their life?
Yes, definitely. Creating a collaborative approach and really ensuring that the community comes together as a coalition. We look at utilizing different assessments to make sure that we're all on the same board. We're all looking at the same stuff so that as a consumer works with different agencies, they can not have to answer the same questions over and over again. We want to encourage our providers to use some of those same assessments. The ACEs is one of the assessments that could easily be used to look at some of those childhood traumas to really get deeper down into some causes. So that's one thing, but really being sure that we all speak the same language is really important. Sure. To have that competency in linguistics.
Sure. And I would imagine that that means, I mean, a partnership, a true partnership, where it is that communication goes back and forth, so you aren't having to put that individual through the same assessment process from the beginning and just validating maybe some of the issues that they feel like they have to begin with, correct?
Yes.
If I'm understanding you correctly. So what can our viewers, what are the things that our viewers should be watching out for should they suspect a mother with 3 teens and one of them seems to be sort of drifting away? What would you give advice, or what would you look out for?
So some of the signs is if someone's not hanging out with them anymore, or if they're staying more inside, if they are increased alcohol or other types of drug increase that use, if they are giving away prized possessions, if they are writing poetry on Facebook or other social media about dying. It's those type of things you really want to look out for.
Sort of that melancholy theme throughout, or looking for coping abilities.
Sure, just disconnecting from things that they used to enjoy to do. Just really disconnecting and becoming more socially isolated.
Gotcha. So marked differences in behavior, for sure. All right, lots to talk about here. If you have any more information that you'd like to get after the show or even during the break, well, I encourage you. You can always log on to the website, socflorida.com, and look for your region, which is Circuit 6, correct? Circuit 6. Of course, we'll have a link for you on our website as well, cw44.com. And of course, if you need help at all, write this number down, 800-273-TALK, 800-273-TALK. Don't go anywhere. We got lots more to talk about after these messages. Welcome back to Bayside. I'm your host, Shelley Sanders. We're talking all about Pasco Aware. Their mission is to prevent and hopefully intervene before suicide is an issue. All right, we are talking also with the Supervisor of Student Services for Pasco County Schools, Danica Cockrell. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And of course, we've been speaking with Jody Nicosia all about Pasco aware and what they're doing here in the Bay Area. What a huge undertaking to try and prevent, and in some levels that would require certain elements of prediction, but there are some telltale signs that our youth give to us, and I can't imagine being the supervisor of student services. That's a huge job and undertaking in and of itself. You are a busy woman, I'm sure. So talk to me about what you're doing to try and prevent suicide in Pasco County.
So within our student service department, we have highly qualified social workers, psychologists, nurses, and school counselors. I get to lead the group of social workers. That's my privilege. So we work as an integrated student service model. We all work together collectively and partner with our community agencies to address students who are at risk and try to get interventions in place. We work at a behavioral health continuum that starts with preventative. So we do a lot of awareness. We do a lot of discussions and talks with students about the fact that you can talk about suicide. You can have a conversation about it, and it's okay to ask somebody, do you feel like you want to die? Do you want to kill yourself? The more direct you can be, the better, because when we're in crisis, we don't understand inferencing. And you asking questions, if you infer something, you may be led down the wrong path. So it's really important to be direct and ask those questions.
Sure. So you're saying that, I know old school thinking, a lot of times people, oh, don't talk about it, you might suggest accidentally, correct? That is a myth.
That's a myth.
So we are clear, that is a myth. By all means, what you're saying is talk to them, come point blank and ask. If you suspect that one of your children or someone you care about is feeling this way, the best approach is to be direct.
Yes, absolutely.
Definitely.
Wow. Now, how do you go about dealing with that with our youth? You know, teens sometimes can be so fragile over things that once, as an adult, when we look back, think, gosh, really? But that's the time period. That's part of a learning curve of being a teenager. How do you even begin to approach this topic and get the real results that you need? Is there data supporting this, and how do you even do that?
So we reach out a lot to our teens through social media. We're using that as a platform, and we're really just beginning to start the conversation within the community and within the school system about how to integrate and really find the best way to reach people.
And I can share that the Sandy Hook Promise programs are wonderful resources. You can go on their website, you can download their programs and provide it to any youth that you have, church-based or groups that you may have. But they have the Sandy Hook Promise programs consist of the Say Something, Start with Hello, as well as the SOS program, the Signs of Suicide. And all of those programs are just very user-friendly, and they really get down to how to engage youth on their level to talk about this unfortunate topic. But talking about it is really the key. We have to talk about it.
Right, that's the first step, is talking about it. And isn't it ironic, something that in the past we've been told, oh, don't talk about it,
right?
Don't talk about it, don't say anything. So with that, when we were talking about just opening up that language barrier, even just opening your mouth a barrier, we're talking also about changing the way we talk about it. Am I right? Talking about not someone's attempting suicide or committing suicide. You're saying let's revamp that altogether, right? And why?
Yes, when we use those terms, it really shows that committing suicide is as though they've committed a criminal act, and that's not what this is. Unfortunately, that person was so isolated, and they did not feel that they had anywhere to turn. Therefore, they took their own life. But it's really important not to utilize the death, committed suicide. We want to ensure that we say suicide, death by suicide, I believe.
Or somebody has suicided.
Suicided or death by suicide. Because you don't want them to feel like, in the event that they didn't follow through with it, or something happened and they ended up living, that they did commit a crime or something horrible, that it's something that you can get past. That, look, this was an experience that you were going through at that time, and ultimately suicide is it's a cry for help, ultimately, and unfortunately
And it affects
ends.
families deeply.
Oh,
The
gosh, yes.
statistics show that if somebody in the family dies by suicide, more other family members are at risk of the same result. And a lot of that comes from the shame and the not talking about it and keeping it secret. So we do need more resources for those families, to support groups to surround them and help them through their grief.
Sure. All right, it all starts by talking, and there are plenty of resources out there for you and available. Of course, you can always log on to socflorida.com. That's how you're going to get in touch with Pasco Aware. It's Circuit 6, that's your district, and that will walk you through the steps. And don't worry, if you get lost, we'll have a link for you on our website. And Google is a great search. Just search online for any kind of resources, and that will get you there as well. And you said Sandy Hook?
Yes, the Sandy Hook Promise programs,
Sandy Hook
the Know the
Promise
Signs.
programs. All right, Sandy Hook Promise programs, know your signs, know these signs, but first and foremost, talk about it. All right, we do have to take a short break, but we're coming back after these messages, so don't go anywhere. We've got lots more to talk about with Pasco Aware. Welcome back to Bayside. I'm your host, Shelley Sanders. We're talking about Pasco Aware. Their mission is to prevent and hopefully intervene before suicide becomes an issue in the Pasco County area. You know, we left talking about some of the issues that our students face and how do you approach it from a student standpoint. We didn't talk about per se from a parent standpoint. Yes, in the first segment we talked about some of the signs that people might experience, but let's talk about that. What do you do? What do you tell a parent? Hey, you know, you notice you've got some signs going on. Where do you even begin? I know for a lot of parents that's a struggle, just to talk to your teenager in general, and then be faced with this. If you suspect that, where do they go? What should they do?
So we have a thorough assessment process if we suspect that a student is at the point where they might have some type of crisis going on, and they've made some statements. We have a way to assess and see how severe it is, and then we bring the parents in to discuss always to refer back to your school team, your nurses, your school counselors, your social workers, even your child's peer group. They know a lot more. So they are good points of contact to sort of get information, and then just always following up with like your primary care physician, engaging in a community partner who provides therapy, definitely finding an outlet for your child to communicate what is going on with them, and so they don't feel alone, so they feel like they can get help.
Sure. So from a parent standpoint, reach out to the counselors there at school, even your physician, your pediatrician, whomever it may be, but talk to someone ultimately, right?
Yes.
So let's talk about events. How do you get the awareness out there? And then for viewers that are thinking, gosh, I would love to get involved, how do I do that? Or this strikes a chord with me and I'd like to help out. I've dealt with this. I can talk to somebody. What do you tell those people? What kind of events do you have?
Well, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention is a great resource in our community. There is a chapter in the Tri-County area, and each year they host an Out of the Darkness walk. So Pasco County's walk is currently scheduled for October 27th at Sims Park. So you can go on their website and look for that particular walk if you want to come out and support and show your support for suicide awareness. Also under the American Federation or Foundation for Suicide Prevention, they have survivor groups on their website, as well as Trinity Hospital in Pasco County offers some suicide survivor groups and supports at their location.
So the resources are available out there. Again, American Foundation for Suicide Prevention is the website she was referring to, and you can keep doing a little bit of digging around. Everybody's Google friendly these days and kind of gets the whole like looking at the different tabs. All right, check it out. We're going to go to break and come back after this to wrap up this week's edition of Bayside, so don't go anywhere. As always, I want to thank you at home for joining us this week on Bayside. And Danica and Jody, thank you so much for being here and enlightening us all of this topic. And more people need to talk about it. Talk about it. For more resources and information, you can always log on to socflorida.com or call the number 727-315-8649. They'll give you all the information you need and then some. Or log on to our website and we'll have a link for you there. For now, I'm Shelley Sanders. Have a great rest of your week.